The next thing we need to create is a progression system. If you recall, I said that MaxBots was going to increase as the game continues. That's what we're going to be setting up today. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to first person BP, open up blueprints, and then first person game mode. And we want to make a new variable to keep track of how far we've progressed. That is to say, how soon until MaxBots will increase again. So click on add a variable, name it progress, and make it an integer. So now we want to give our first person game mode a way to increase MaxBots. We're not going to have it do it yet, but we want to give it a way to do it. So right click, add a custom event, and name it increase limit. And this is going to do exactly what I just said. Now drag in MaxBots, click get, drag off, type plus plus, and click increment int, and connect the arrows. This will increase MaxBots by 1. The next thing we want to do is we want to grab progress, click set, and set it to 0. This way the players don't progress faster than you mean them to. Right, compile that, save it, and then open up your BP AI. So you'll go back to the main screen, click content, third person BP, blueprints, and BP AI. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a persistent reference to our game mode. And a persistent reference is basically just a reference that we can use over and over again. We'll start by creating the begin play event. So right click and begin play. Click event begin play. And we'll drag off of the arrow and type in cast to first person game mode. Then we'll drag off of object and just type get game mode. Then right click on as first person game mode and click promote to variable. And we can just name it GM for game mode. So what we're doing is we're grabbing the first person game mode that we're using and we're just storing it in this variable here. That way we can just use that variable over and over instead of having to put in that every single time. At this point you could, I'm not going to just because I'm not, but what you could do is you could get rid of these two, plug GM into target, and connect this white to that white. And the game would still work just the same. But as I said, I'm not going to do that. At the end of our begin overlap event, back here where it says bots remaining minus minus, this part of the chain, and I say this part of the chain because we'll be creating another part of the chain later, but this part of the chain only runs when we shoot the robot, which means that if the game's logic gets to here, then the robot is only dead because we shot it so many times, which means we want to progress. We don't want to progress when the robot gets destroyed by the force field or whatever else. We only want to progress when the robot gets destroyed by us. And if the game has reached this point, that's because the robot has been destroyed by us. So what we want to do here is we want to increase progress. So drag in GM, click get, drag off of GM, and type get progress. Drag off of progress and type plus plus and click increment int. Connect the arrows. And now every time we take out a robot, progress will increase by 1. After we've increased progress, we need to check and see if it's time to spawn in a new bot. In other words, check and see if progress has met the required number. So what we're going to do is we'll drag off of this arrow, type if or branch, and just click on branch. Drag off of this red arrow here, or red dot here. Click greater than equals. Greater than is shift period if you don't know. And click integer greater than equals integer. So what we'll do is, I'm going to use this same one, but you can just as easily drag in a new one if you want. That's fine. But I'm just going to use this one. So drag off of GM and type in get MaxBots. We'll drag off of MaxBots and hit star. That's shift 8 if you don't know. And go to integer star integer. The star is for multiplication. They don't use X in programming, they use the star, because X is a letter that often gets used as the variable. So now we need to multiply MaxBots by something. I'm just going to multiply it by itself, just to make things easier. If you are playing the game and it feels like it's progressing too slowly, you can unclick this by holding Alt and clicking and just change this number to whatever you want. Just kind of play around with it. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. And we'll drag the answer into B and drag progress into A. Actually, I'm going to drag this one into A because it's a bit less confusing to look at. It's the same number, just a bit less confusing to look at. Alright, so what's this doing? After we increment progress, we're checking to see if the new value of progress is equal to or greater than MaxBots times whatever you put here. I just put MaxBots again. If that's true, then that's when we want to spawn in a new bot. So we'll drag in GM, click get, drag off of GM, and type in increase limit. Compile, save, and now you should see that when I spawn in, or when I start the game rather, 3 bots spawn in. After I take out 9, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, 4 bots spawn in at a time. And if I were to take out 16, 5 would spawn in at a time. I'm not going to do that just because that would probably take a while. But actually, I will do that. I don't know how many that was, but that has to be at least 16. Yeah, there we go. So now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 have spawned in right now. So the more bots you take out, the more that will spawn in. And like I said, if you feel like the game is taking too long to progress, all you have to do is go back to BPAI and change, well, alt-click that and change this number. If you feel like it's progressing too quickly, you can do the exact same thing. But that's it for this time. In the next video, we will be setting up the force field.